The alarm did not scream. It whispered. Across the frontier system of Caro's Reach, warning lights bloomed one by one, soft amber at first, then deep red. Sensors trembled, then stabilized, as if afraid of what they had just seen. Something massive had entered the system. Governor Tyrell Vex stood frozen in the command chamber, his long fingers gripping the edge of the holotabo. The projection before him showed the intruding fleet in cold, undeniable clarity. 6 warships. Federal make. Syndicate modified. The worst kind. They weren't supposed to come here, someone whispered behind him. Tyrell did not turn. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a death sentence. They were always going to come. Caro's Reach was not rich. It was not powerful. It was a forgotten stretch of space where broken species survived together because no one else wanted them. Exiles, refugees, races. The Federation uplifted and then discarded when they were no longer useful. The Syndicate called places like this harvest zones. And tonight, Caro's Reach had been marked. They'll demand surrender within the hour, said strategist Olma, her frilled crest tight with fear. Then the collars? Then transport. Tyrell closed his eyes. He had seen this before. On other worlds. On recordings smuggled through black channels. The pattern never changed. Leaders executed. Workers enslaved. Children sold. Resistance crushed under nullifiers and orbital fire. We cannot fight them, Olma continued. Our weapons will shut down the moment their null fields activate. Silence fell over the chamber. Every being present knew the truth. Caro's Reach had maybe 12,000 defenders, most armed with outdated rifles and improvised armor. The Syndicate fleet could erase them without ever landing troops. A junior officer spoke, voice shaking. There is one option. Tyrell opened his eyes slowly. No, he said. That is not an option. That is a myth. The officer swallowed. With respect, Governor. The humans? Enough? Tyrell snapped. Humans. The word carried a strange weight in the frontier. They were not members of the Federation. Not allies. Not enemies. They were something else. Outcasts, like the rest of Caro's Reach, small, fragile, biologically unimpressive compared to most species here. They held a few scattered settlements along the frontier, quiet places that rarely asked for help and never offered it. Yet no Syndicate raid had ever touched them. Not once. They're weak, Olma insisted. Individually fragile. No natural armar. Limited strength. Their colonies barely defend themselves. And yet, the junior officer said carefully, bandits avoid them. Slavers avoid them. Even the Syndicate avoids them. That made Tyrell uneasy. There were stories. Always stories. Whispered in dockyards and smuggler bars. About human weapons that didn't rely on power cells. About ships that ignored null fields. About a human presence that made predators. Hesitate. Fear is not a strategy, Tyrell said. No, the officer replied softly. But survival sometimes is. The holotable shifted. A new projection appeared. Syndicate insignia. Estimated arrival time. 3 hours. Uma turned to Tyrell, desperation leaking through her disciplined tone. If we stay, we die. If we run, they hunt us. Governor, we have nothing left to lose. Tyrell stared at the countdown. 3 hours. Long enough to send a message. Too short to expect a reply. Unless... Prepare a long-range courier, Tyrell said slowly. Stealth class Alma's crest flared in shock. You don't mean I do, Tyrell said. His voice was quiet now. Send it to the human settlement on Varick's moon. The room erupted. They won't help us. They're not soldiers. They don't owe us anything. Tyrell raised one hand. Silence fell again. They don't owe us, he agreed. That's what makes it honest. Alma stepped closer. Governor, what exactly do we ask them? Tyrell hesitated. Because asking for help was easy. Asking to unleash something you did not fully understand was not. We tell them the truth, he said finally. That the syndicate is coming. That we are out of time. And if they refuse... Tyrell met her gaze. Then, at least we die, knowing we didn't kneel. The courier launched minutes later, slipping into fold space like a whispered prayer. 3 hours passed quickly, too quickly. Syndicate warships emerged at the edge of the system in a display of cruel precision. Their formation was flawless. Their signals dominant and arrogant. A broadcast cut through all channels. This system is now under syndicate claim. Lay down all weapons. Open your docks. Compliance will be rewarded. Tyrell felt his people watching him, waiting. Then, another signal appeared. Unencrypted, simple, human. Uma's eyes widened. Governor. It's from Varick's moon. Tyrell's breath caught. Put it through. The holoprojector flickered. A human appeared. No uniform? No visible rank. Just a calm face and tired eyes. We got your message, the human said. That was it. No promises. No threats. No questions. Just that, Tyrell swallowed. And the human leaned slightly closer to the camera. You didn't ask us to fight for you, they said. You warned us. A pause. That was considerate. Behind the human, something moved. Shapes. Metal. Ships, warming engines. The human continued, voice steady. We don't like the syndicate. Another pause. And we really don't like people who think the frontier is weak. The channel went dead. Alma looked at Tyrell, heart pounding. What does that mean? Tyrell stared at the empty projection. Far out in space, human ships began to rise from Varick's moon. Old holes, ugly designs. No Federation markings. But they were moving fast. And for the first time, since the alarm whispered instead of screamed, the syndicate fleet adjusted its formation. Just slightly, as if something unexpected had entered the equation. The syndicate commander did not believe in instincts. He believed in numbers, projections, and the absolute certainty that fear always won in the end. So when his tactical officer hesitated, the commander noticed immediately. Report, Commander Salrix ordered. His voice filtered through layered translators. The officer's mandibles twitched. Human vessels have exited Varick's moon orbit. Salrix barely glanced at the display. Irrelevant. Their ships are lightly armored and poorly shielded. Null fields will disable anything meaningful. Yes, Commander, the officer replied. Then, after a pause, they are not activating energy weapons. Salrix frowned. Explain. The display zoomed in. The human ships were accelerating hard. No glowing reactors. No charge signatures. Just raw thrust. They are carrying kinetic launch systems, the officer said slowly. No detectable power feeds. Salrix felt a flicker of irritation. Primitive. Yet his fingers tapped the console twice, pulling up historical data. Human kinetics. Chemically driven. Mass-based. Ugly things that ignored nullifiers entirely. A relic tactic. A dangerous one. Adjust formation, Salrix ordered. Bring up forward shields. They already are up, Commander. The first impact came without warning. No energy spike, no beam. Just a sudden, violent shudder as a Syndicate escort ship lost its forward sensor array in a spray of molten armor and atmosphere. A second impact followed. Then a third. What just happened? Salric snapped. Kinetic penetrators, the officer said, voice tight. High velocity. Fired from beyond standard engagement range. Salric's eyes narrowed. Humans weren't supposed to be that accurate. On Caro's Reach, Governor Terrell Vex watched the battle unfold in stunned silence. The human ships did not charge. They did not form neat lines or heroic wedges. They spread out. Messy, asymmetric, unpredictable. Some fired. Others didn't. Some vanished from sensors entirely, only to reappear moments later on a different vector. Olma leaned closer to the display. They're not trying to win a fleet battle. Terrell nodded slowly. They're trying to make the Syndicate uncomfortable. A human transmission broke through, directed at both Caro's Reach and the Syndicate fleet. This is a courtesy notice, the same calm human voice said. You are entering contested space, Salric snarled. By whom? The reply came instantly. By us. Another volley of kinetic fire punched into a second escort ship. This one lost engines and began to tumble. Commander, the officer said, they are not prioritizing kills. They are targeting mobility, sensors, and command nodes. Salrix realized the problem too late. This was not intimidation. It was preparation. Launch fighters, he ordered. Fighter bays opened across the Syndicate fleet. Human ships reacted instantly. Something bloomed in space clouds of metal shards, drifting mines, and spinning debris fields deployed with reckless abandon. The first wave of Syndicate fighters flew straight into it. Explosions rippled. Olma exhaled sharply. There, turning space into a trap. Terrell felt something shift inside his chest. The humans weren't stronger. They weren't faster. They were meaner, in a very specific way. Another human transmission cut in, this time directly to Caro's Reach. We're not here to save you, the human said. Terrell stiffened. We're here to change the math. On the Syndicate flagship, Cyrix slammed a clawed fist into his command rail. This is not worth it, he hissed. The officer looked up, shocked. Commander. Cyrix stared at the display. Human ships were still arriving. Or dozens. Hundreds. Freighters with guns bolted on. Mining ships refitted into missile barges. Civilian hulls bristling with crude launchers. None impressive alone. Together, a nightmare of attrition. Signal the fleet, Salaric said slowly. We withdraw beyond engagement range. Regroup. The officer hesitated. But Caro's Reach is no longer profitable, Salaric snapped. Not tonight. The Syndicate fleet began to pull back. On Caro's Reach, silence filled the command chamber. They were alive, Olma's voice trembled. There. Leaving. Terrell watched the human ships hold position. Watching. Waiting. Then the human channel opened one last time. We bought you time, the voice said. What you do with it is up to you. The transmission ended. The human ships turned, slipping back toward Vorex Moon, as casually as they had arrived. No victory speeches. No demands. Just a warning, delivered the human way. Terrell sank into his chair, breath unsteady. The frontier would never be the same. Because the Syndicate had learned something new. When the desperate had no options left, someone might decide to unleash the humans. The Syndicate did not retreat far. They never did. Commander Selrix stood alone in the silence of the flagship's strategy chamber. staring at the slow rotation of stars beyond the viewport. His fleet hovered just outside the human harassment range, engines warm, weapons charged. He hated uncertainty. "Status," he said at last. The tactical officer straightened. "Fleet integrity at 87%. 2 escorts, crippled. Fighter losses minimal. Human ships holding position near Verex's moon." Selrix's claws flexed. "And the target Caro's reach remains intact." That single sentence felt like a failure. Selrix turned. "Explain something to me." Slowly. The officer swallowed. "Yes, Commander." "Why," Selrix said, "did a species with inferior ships, inferior numbers, and no legal claim to that system force us to disengage?" The chamber stayed silent. Finally, the officer spoke. "Because they did not fight like a military." Selrix's eyes narrowed. "Clarify." "They treated the battle as a cost calculation," the officer said. "Every shot they fired reduced our efficiency. Every maneuver forced us to spend fuel. Every loss created delay." Salix felt a chill creep beneath his armor. "They didn't try to win," the officer continued. "They tried to make continuation irrational." On Caro's reach, Governor Terrelvex convened an emergency council. The chamber was crowded now. Clan leaders, traders, refugee representatives. People who had spent their entire lives learning how to bend under pressure without breaking. Olma stood beside him, hands shaking slightly. "They left us breathing," she said. "But the Syndicate will come back." "Yes," Terrell agreed. "They always do." A murmur rippled through the room. "They only left because the humans showed up," someone said. "We cannot depend on that happening twice." Terrell nodded. "We don't depend on it." All eyes turned to him. "We prepare," he said. "The humans bought us time. Time is the rarest resource in the frontier." A channel chimed softly. Alma blinked. "Incoming communication. Encrypted. Human origin." Terrell gestured. "Open it." The same calm human voice filled the chamber. "You have 3 weeks," it said. "Maybe 4, if the Syndicate argues with itself." Terrell leaned forward. "How do you know?" "Because they always do," the voice replied. "And because fear makes people inefficient." "What do you want?" Terrell asked. A pause. Just long enough to feel deliberate. "Nothing," the voice said. "We're not your saviors." Alma frowned. "Then why help us?" Another pause. "Because we don't like bullies," the human said. "And because frontier space works better when everyone understands consequences." The channel closed. Silence followed. "They didn't ask for payment," someone whispered. "That worries me," Alma said. Terrell shook his head slowly. "No. It should terrify the Syndicate." 3 systems away, Commander Selrix watched the human fleet through magnified scans. They were dismantling mines, recovering debris, refueling quietly. "Commander," the officer said. "Intelligence reports suggest increased human traffic across multiple frontier systems." Selrix's jaw tightened. "They're spreading the story." Yes. Selrix understood the danger now. Stories traveled faster than fleets. "Prepare a countermeasure," he ordered. "We need to remind the frontier who truly holds power. An example." "Yes," Selrix said softly, "a decisive one." He selected a system. Smaller than Caro's reach, poorer defenses, fewer humans nearby. "Plot course," he said. "We will crush them quickly." Publicly, the officer hesitated. "What if the humans respond again?" Selrix turned slowly. "They won't," he said. "They intervened once to make a point. They won't bleed for everyone. They won't bleed for everyone. He hoped he was right. On Varek's moon, the human fleet regrouped. No banners. No cheers. Just quiet efficiency. A younger human officer broke the silence. They're regrouping. The calm man nodded. Of course they are. Are we stopping them? The man looked at the star map. At the web of vulnerable frontier worlds. No, he said. We're letting them make the next move? The officer frowned. That's risky. Yes, the man agreed, but humans learn faster when the lesson costs something. He tapped the console, sending encrypted packets outward. Warnings, data, coordinates, not orders. Invitations. Across the frontier, independent human captains received the same message. A syndicate fleet was about to remind everyone why it ruled the dark. And humans hate reminders. The man leaned back, eyes cold. Let's see, he said quietly. How many show up next time? The syndicate strike was meant to be clean. Fast in. Fast out. One burning world left behind as proof that fear still worked. Commander Saelrix chose the target carefully. A small mining colony orbiting a gas giant, barely defended, barely noticed. No strategic value beyond its location along several trade routes. A place where refugees gathered when they had nowhere else to go. Perfect. Transmit the ultimatum, Saelrix ordered. The message was short, formal, and cruel. Surrender all resources. Submit population for processing. Resistance will result in total destruction. He expected panic. He expected begging. What he did not expect was silence. Minutes passed. Then an alert chimed. Commander, the tactical officer said slowly. We are detecting non-syndicate vessels entering the system. Saelrix allowed himself a thin smile. The humans again? No, the officer replied. Not just humans. The display expanded. Dozens of ships dropped from jump space. Human freighters, yes. But also others. Independent traders. Modified survey ships. Armed merchant hulls. Even a few vessels, Saelrix recognized as belonging to species long thought broken and submissive. What is this? Saelrix hissed. On the mining colony below, Governor Lethra watched the sky fill with shapes that were never supposed to answer her calls. Ulma's words echoed in her memory. Stories travel faster than fleets. Her console lit up with a single incoming transmission. Human origin. You're not alone, the voice said. Not today. Above the planet, the growing force did not form a neat battle line. They didn't need to. They scattered. They hid behind debris fields. They tucked themselves into sensor noise and planetary shadow. Commander, the officer whispered. This is not an organized navy. Saelrix leaned forward. Explain. They are acting independently, the officer said. No central command. No unified doctrine. Saelrix snarled. Then they will break. The first strike came from an unexpected angle. A mining ship refitted with crude armor rammed a syndicate patrol craft at full burn. It tore itself apart in the process, but it shattered the patrol ship's sensors and forced an emergency retreat. Another ship followed. Then another. They're sacrificing themselves, the officer said in disbelief. No, Saelrix snapped. They are trading. Every exchange costs the syndicate time, fuel, and ships. Every exchange cost the attackers everything. And still more arrived. A human cruiser slid out of jump space last. Not large, not flashy. But every syndicate sensor lit up when it appeared. Saelrix recognized the signature instantly. The same one from Varek's moon. The humans have arrived, the officer said quietly. The calm human voice cut across all channels. "This system is closed," it said. "Turn around." Salix's mandibles trembled. "You don't command here." "No," the voice replied. "But we're willing to stay." Salrix stared at the tactical display. He had the firepower to win. But winning meant losses. Losses meant delay. Delay meant more ships arriving. Stories spreading. Fear changing sides. He clenched his claws. "Withdraw," he ordered. The officer looked stunned. "Commander now," Salrix roared. The Syndicate fleet turned away. On the mining colony, stunned cheers broke out. People cried. Some laughed. Others just sat and stared at the sky, unable to believe they were still alive. The human ships did not celebrate. They lingered long enough to make sure the Syndicate was truly gone. Then they left. No speeches, no demands. Just another lesson delivered. Far from the system, Commander Salrix stood rigid as the stars slid past. "This is spreading," the officer said softly. Salrix said nothing. He could feel it now. The frontier was changing. Not because the humans were conquering it, but because they had taught it something dangerous. That even giants could bleed. And once that truth took hold, no fleet was ever truly alone again. The Syndicate did not forgive retreats. Commander Salrix knew that the moment his fleet disengaged, a countdown began. Failure was tolerated only if it led to learning. Learning was tolerated only if it led to punishment. The High Syndics would demand blood. And if they could not take it from the frontier, they would take it from him. That was why Salrix did not return to the core worlds. Instead, he went deeper. Deeper into places maps pretended did not exist. He chose a system with no name, only a number. A dead star. A broken ring of asteroids. And in their shadow, a Syndicate listening post that answered to no one but him. "They are not afraid," Salrix said to the Dark Bridge. "They are learning," replied the intelligence officer. That was the problem. Humans did not simply fight. They remembered. They copied. They adapted. Words. They inspired others to do the same. Reports flooded in. Independent worlds refusing inspections. Convoys rerouting through unsafe space. Groups declining Syndicate contracts. And, always in the background, the same rumor. If you hit them, the humans will come. Salrix slammed a claw into the command console. "They are parasites," he snarled. "They have no empire, no unity, no right to shape fear. Then why do they?" the officer asked quietly. Salrix had no answer, because fear was no longer coming from above. It was coming from stories whispered between stars. On a different world, Ryan stood on a landing platform, watching humans load cargo, weapons, medical supplies, spare parts. The operation had been a success. Too much of a success? "You see the problem?" Hive leader Dilt said beside him. Ryan did. The humans had come. But now, they kept coming. Not as conquerors, as volunteers. "You've awakened something," Ryan said. "No," Dilt replied. "You did." Ryan clenched his mandibles. This was never supposed to be a movement. It was meant to be one fight. One warning. Now, frontier councils were reaching out. Outcasts, refugees, minor species crushed by the Federal Union and ignored by the core. They all ask the same question. How do we contact the humans? Ryan did not know how to answer. Because the humans did not have a command center, they did not have a leader. They had a habit, and that habit was responding. The lead dealer sat alone in his ship, watching jump coordinates scroll past. Anita leaned against the doorway. "You're thinking too hard again," she said. He did not answer. "You know what they're saying now?" she continued. "They call you a signal. Like a beacon. If the lead dealer shows up, it means someone pushed to..." He sighed. "I never wanted this," he said. "Good," Anita replied. "Neither did anyone else who changed history." He finally looked at her. "They will escalate," he said. "Hard. They always do. And when they do, this won't." "Stay clean," Anita shrugged. "It never does." He turned back to the stars. "They think we're a weapon," he said quietly. Anita smiled thinly. "Then let's be the kind that scares bullies, not worlds." The Syndicate struck back 3 weeks later. Not at a colony, not at a station. They hit a human convoy. Medical ships. Refugee transports. Unarmed. They made sure the footage leaked. Burning holes. Air venting into space. Bodies tumbling into darkness. The message was clear. This is what helping costs. The frontier held its breath. Ryan watched the footage in silence. So did DLT. So did every outcast who had dared to hope. Then something strange happened. The calls did not stop. They multiplied. Human ships began rerouting with that. Orders. Independent captains armed their freighters. Former Syndicate mercenaries sent encrypted messages offering intel. Fear had been used as a weapon, and it had backfired. Salrix watched the reactions pour in. Defiance. Anger. Resolve. He felt something cold settle in his core. "They are unifying," he whispered. The intelligence officer nodded. "Around the humans." "No," Salrix said slowly. "Around an idea. An idea far more dangerous than fleets. That you did not need permission to fight back. That survival did not require approval. That monsters could be challenged. Prepare the next phase." Salrix ordered. "What phase?" the officer asked. Salrix's eyes reflected starlight like knives. "We stop punishing the frontier," he said. "We break the symbol." Awani reached Ryan first. A human scout ship limped into orbit, hull scorched, engines failing. "It's..." Catton transmitted a single message before going dark. "They're coming for the lead dealer." Ryan felt the weight of it settle into his bones. Not a raid, not intimidation, an execution. Dilt looked at him. "If they kill him..." Ryan nodded grimly. "The story changes," he finished. That night, Ryan sent one message. Not to the humans, to everyone else. "They are not hunting us anymore. They are hunting the reason we stand." Across the frontier, engines warmed, weapons were checked, and for the first time in a very long time, the Syndicate prepared to face something it had never truly fought before. Not an army, but a refusal to kneel. The Syndicate expected an ambush. They did not expect a crowd. "Commander." Salix's flagship emerged from jump space at the edge of the dead system, weapons hot, sensors wide. The trap was perfect. An empty stretch of void. One predictable target. The lead dealer's ship. Alone, small, waiting, contain and destroy, Salrix ordered. No boarding, no survivors. This was not about victory anymore. This was about erasing a symbol. But the sensors began to scream. Contacts, dozens, then hundreds. Freighters, mining vessels, old patrol ships, modified transports, ships that should never have been armed, human-built hulls, Zist holes. Things welded together that should not fly at all. They poured in from every vector. Cylric stared as the tactical display bloomed red. "What is that?" he whispered. The intelligence officer's voice shook. "Independent formations? Frontier coalitions? Civilian craft? Where are their command codes?" "There are none." The Syndicate had always fought hierarchies. This was chaos with teeth. Ryan stood on the bridge of a captured cruiser, hands gripping the railing as the stars filled with movement. He could see human ships moving without signals, sliding into positions as if they had trained together for years. They had not. They had simply learned. "Remember," Ryan said quietly, his voice carried through open coms, "we don't chase. We don't glory hunt. We hold." Humans responded with short acknowledgements. Calm/focused. Anita's voice cut in next. "Frontline ships, your bait. Congratulations. Try not to die dramatically." A few nervous laughs followed. And then the shooting started. The Syndicate fired first. They always did. Plasma washed across the void, turning wrecks into fire. A human freighter exploded. Another lost engines. Ryan felt the old fear claw at him. Then the counterfire hit. Lead throwers thundered in vacuum-rated bursts. Rail slugs punched through armor that had never been tested against kinetic weapons, fired in volleys. Nullifiers flared. Syndicate energy weapons died mid-dash burst. Human ships surged forward, not charging, but flowing cutting angles, forcing bad shots, herding enemy vessels into overlapping fire. This was not a battle plan. It was a bad day. Multiplied. Cylric's roared orders. "Focus fire. Break the human core." "There is no core," the officer shouted back. Every time they targeted a ship, 3 more slid in. When they regrouped, someone rammed them. When they advanced, someone boarded them. Cylric saw a Syndicate destroyer vanish. As humans tore open its flank and vented its crew, this was not extermination. This was consequence. The lead dealer finally moved. His ship surged forward, slipping through crossfire like a ghost. He did not target capital ships. He went for Cylric's. The flagship shuddered as something massive struck its hull. Boarding alarms screamed. "No," Cylric's hissed. "Kill that ship." Too late. The lead dealer walked onto the bridge like death wearing boots. Ryan saw it through a shared feed. Black coat scorched. Hat gone. Eyes steady, bat weapons down. "You should have stayed away from the frontier," the lead dealer said calmly. Cylric's bared his teeth. "You are nothing. A myth. A story." The human stepped closer. "Stories change behavior," he replied. "That's what scared you?" Cylric's lunged. The lead dealer moved once. It was over. Silence spread faster than the battle ever had. Syndicate ships powered down. Some fled. Most froze. Ryan closed his eyes as the realization hit. They were done. Not destroyed. Broken. Hours later. A message echoed across every open channel. Not a threat, not a boast. A statement. The frontier is closed to slavers. Return, and you will not face soldiers. You will face neighbors. The Syndicate withdrew. Not in order, not with dignity. They ran. In the aftermath, the stars felt different. Quiet Orion stood beside Dilt, on Many Eggs High's platform, watching. Ships depart, human ships stayed behind, helping. Repairing. Teaching. "We didn't unleash them," Ryan said slowly. Dilt nodded. "No?" we asked. And they answered. The lead dealer's ship lifted last. Anita waved from the ramp. Try not to start any revolutions without us, she shouted. Ryan let out a tired, clicking laugh as the ship vanished into jump light. Ryan understood the truth the Syndicate never had. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not the most advanced. They were the ones who showed up. And once they did, the galaxy would never be quiet again.